Welcome to another episode of the Fanzone Podcast, your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of the preview, Ep.3, and it's brought to you by us here at the Fanzone Pod. Pleasure to have you all with us. We've got another special guest. We're building up our contacts list. This time we're joined by Joe from Charlton Live. Thank you very much for joining us, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. It's been a long week, so looking forward to hopefully some good news at the Valley tomorrow. But after seeing you boys last season, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's certainly looking up to be a good game. Chris, how are you this evening, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, just getting myself prepared for a long day tomorrow. Heading down to the smoke. So yeah, it's hard to distinguish. Obviously, being a thick northerner, obviously which part of London I'm going to and what have you. But it's London, isn't it? So yeah, looking forward to it. But all good.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into another episode of the preview. So, as always, for those of you who are watching along at home, get your comments in as we go along. Get your questions in. If you want to find anything out about Charlton Athletic, then we have the man right here, Joe. So, Charlton Live, tell us a bit about them. How long have they been around? Obviously, before we went on air, you revealed to us just how many of you there are involved with it. And it'd be a good one to share because I'm sure probably not many people know outside of it. So go on, fill us in, tell us all the deets.
You started off with a question I don't actually know the answer to. I don't know when it started. I'll have to get on to the rest of the historian. Oh, there we go.
I know. Please, sir. Well, from my research, I mean, the thing that jumps off the page at me is the number of subscribers you've got. Is obviously sort of pro rata to the size of the club and what have you is phenomenal. Is it 7,500 subscribers on Twitter?
The thing that you do have to remember with that, of course, is that supporting Charlton has very much been a drama and a roller coaster. So there's never not anything to talk about normally. Yeah. And actually, off the pitch seems to be going relatively smoothly at the minute. So we're waiting for the next disaster. But
don't jinx it.
There's always there's quite a lot to get through. So that doesn't hurt. But yeah, there's 11 of us in total involved in various different levels. Louis Mendes runs it. Yeah. A phenomenal amount of work that he puts in following Charlton. I don't know how he finds the time and has a job, but he's sort of the coordinator. And then he's got a ragtag bunch of us who contribute a little bit here and there and give our opinions and normally moan. But we've been a little bit more sort of positive last few weeks. And then we went and scuppered all of that hope on Tuesday by turning out a truly woeful performance against Lincoln. So hopefully we'll bounce back, but we'll have to wait and see.
Did I, as I say, I did some research. I'm the resident nerd. So it was originally Charlton News, like sort of 10 years ago, and it's kind of Charlton Live's kind of grown from that, or.
Well, if you go back to the proper origins, it would have been Charlton Chat, I suppose, have been the first sort of version of this. And this was done on the radio by a chap called Steve Sutherland, who was working for the club at the time. But it was very much local radio. So genuinely people would drive into the frequency area that they could receive it, sit in their cars and listen. So that was the very first origin of it. And then this is where the sort of modern Charlton Life has then come through. And we was live for a number of years, recorded down at the Valley in a little studio down there. And then obviously COVID happened and that wasn't possible anymore. So we were just doing really recordings and podcasts that would be put out later. But we joined the YouTube sort of vibe about a year ago now, and we get about 1,000 streams on each show now, so decent following considering there's only about 8,000 season ticket holders. And then I think it's about 3,500 listeners to each show on the podcast side of it. So decent numbers of people tuning in. We're sort of fan group / Samaritans helpline all rolled into one. So it's good fun. But we're getting to talk a bit more about the football now. So fingers crossed that'll stay here for the foreseeable.
Happy days. No, that's
Absolutely.
great. There's a lot of parallels. You mentioned the years and the struggle and depression and flights of clubs and stuff. It's quite uncanny, the sort of comparison and the similarities between ourselves and Charlton. It's striking in terms of similarities.
It's horrible, isn't it, when you think the club's going under? We've had a few of those over the last few years where you sort of sit there season after season thinking, "Are we going to keep the doors open this time?" And I don't know as much about your guys' sort of exact plight, but I don't know if you quite had as many con men and fake shakes involved as we have over the years. But it's nice to see clubs in both situations coming through various different financial positions and ownership issues and getting to a position where they're putting good football on and getting players and fans and everything back engaged with a positive story, as opposed to campaigning to keep the club alive and where it is. And we're still not out of the woods with ownership. We're owned now by a consortium with Charlie Methven involved, and obviously the Sunderland fans are very complimentary about him, as I'm sure we're all aware. And but Roland de Châtelet still owns the ground and the training ground. So having been known and lost our ground once already in our history, we still don't own it. And we've only got 12 years left on a lease. So even when things are starting to get better, you still got the scary thing down the road.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And really, the only way that gets resolved is if we get promoted to the Prem, because then we can afford the 60 million quid that the person who has the assets wants for it. So that's going to get around that. And he wants that because he was promised it once by a bloke who had absolutely no intention of buying it and bought the club for £1 and then spent every penny in the bank. So that's how you end up in these situations. But, there's certainly clubs in much worse positions. The likes of Bury and even Southend have really gone even further. So every day you're thankful you're not one of them. And you'll find that fans of clubs who've been through the ringer, it's a great little community and everyone's together and sort of against bad owners and dodgy characters and pro fans sort of being front and centre, and owners just being stewards of clubs, because that's really all they are. It's a funny business model, but you're not proper unless you're a dyed-in-the-wool fan, are you? No,
it's good. I think it's useful you mentioning that, because obviously, like I say, we all know the position that we've been in, referring to the viewers who are on tonight. We're all familiar with it, but I think it puts it into perspective when we're moaning about the size of these brand new LED screens that we're putting up in the corners of the ground and this, that, and the other. That I ain't going to go down the route of we should be glad that we've got a club, but I think sometimes a bit of perspective like that is necessary. When you hear stories like you're telling us today, Joe, of uncertainty, as somebody's mentioned in the chat, it's sad, and it is. It's integral. A community without a football club isn't one anymore. So, yeah.
Well, at least tomorrow we can sing at you that our screen's bigger than yours. Then, by the sounds of it, so because our one in the corner is massive.
Yeah, I remember it from last season. I was about this big, but they're really, really good resolution, Joe. So that's always a bonus. And there you go. Sorry, I'm cutting across you, Ben. I'm taking over the body.
That's okay. There's certainly a long record of games for Bolton and Charlton. I think 15 in total, right the way from the Premier League to the Carabao Cup to the Championship, and now, of course, in League One. And thankfully, he didn't have the pleasure of facing us in League Two. But there's been certainly some games between the two sides. But let's have a look at Charlton's season so far, and we'll dive a little bit into that with you, Joe, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So we're on manager 2 of the season. Dean Holden. I think we're the first club this season sat their manager. I'm
Yes.
fairly sure
were.
no one else beat
Yeah.
us in that. We got off to a winning start, 1-0 against Leyton Orient, and I'll be honest, we were a bit lucky. So that sort of was the writing on the wall really for our season at that stage. And we were still massively short of players when we came into the season because the takeover only sort of went through sort of mid-window. And they still hadn't got everybody involved that they wanted to get. So we had a technical director in Andy Scott coming in. He didn't get there until 2 weeks before the window closed. So you had sort of a hybrid of the old ownership starting the acquisitions or the transfer window, the new ownership finishing it off. So yeah, so you had that background. And then we just couldn't buy a win. And themes really from last season, people, especially our defenders, just turning off or buffering for a period of time while opposition strikers waltzed in or found themselves in an acre of space in the box and just tucking their chances away. So we were very generous at the back, and we were struggling really to tuck the chances away in the right way up front. And we had a number of injuries in the squad as well, which wasn't helping in that creativity space, but we were lacking in it with players that could create opportunities. So that sort of came to a head at Oxford away, which I had the pleasure of being at, where Dean Holden played our left back at centre mid and our left winger at left back. And even then, when we made a substitution to bring on a left back, another central midfielder, the left back went to left wing and the left winger went to left back. They were that confused that they'd forgotten which position they actually played in. And then he was sacked immediately after that game. And to the surprise, actually, of I'd say the majority of fans, I was a bit more okay with it, I'd say, than the most, just because of the kind of the patterns. But there was certainly, he was a good bloke. You can't get away from that.
He's a great lad, isn't he, Dean? Yeah.
But the challenge was the tactical elements, and we were second best last season and this season at the start. And then we got Mickey Apples in, who is Michael Appleton is his full name, but you won't hear him called that in South East London.
What is all that? I've got it in. I put it in my notes. It's like, as I was doing my research earlier today, it was just coming up time and time again. Mickey Apples. It's like, what is all that about?
I think Luis Mendes said it once, and then from then it stuck.
Right.
That's how. I suppose that's kudos to his importance. So Mickey Apples came in and he's done well. He lost his first game on Tuesday, but before then we'd won or drawn everything else. But we still have yet really to put a 90-minute performance together, and we got enough players in that squad that are not capable of doing 90 minutes performances. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I think the watch out for tomorrow will be, if we start badly, we're probably going to get a result. And if we start well, then just don't concede too many, and then you'll have plenty of opportunities when we switch off in the second half of the game. So that's very much been the pattern of play. But there's some talented players in that squad.
Yeah.
If they're on song, then they can cause problems. But we've also got the people that fall asleep, and if they're not on form, then they can cause us problems as well.
Yeah, it's weird actually. We sort of putting it into segments like that, and you think about how we've been playing and the trend that we've seen developing is that we first half really, really powerful. And then the second half, there's a notable sort of drop off right up until the last game, which was away on Tuesday night at Wickham, where we were 2-0 up. And then the beginning of the second half, we conceded early, proceeded to lose our lead 2-2, and then we kind of kicked on again. But it's been that bit where we've kicked on again hasn't really been a trend this season at all. We've just been a team of two halves, starting well and ending quite badly. So it's quite interesting. It's a bit of a sort of dichotomy, really, in terms of how each team plays. And when you put it on top of each other, it's going to be hard to predict, I think.
I think all the goals might be at in front of the covered end then, based on how our season has gone, because we're probably going 4-0 at half time and maybe scrape a 4-4 if that's the way that your games are going. Yeah. But it's one of those, at this level, you struggle to get the caliber of squad, don't you, that string 90-minute performances together always. And you can't have too many of them in your squad. You can carry a couple, but you can't can't carry 4 or 5 in your starting lineup.
I agree with that totally. I think as well, and similar to yourselves, if you try and play in the right way, and I guess that the objective is for most managers, I don't think Everton's any exception, is you try and mirror Guardiola and De Zerbi in the way that you play in at League One level, both mentally and physically. It's just way too taxing to play attractive football and sustain it for a 90-minute period. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, the one thing that does give me a little bit of hope for tomorrow is I remember you guys having a lot of the ball and a lot of play being very far up the pitch and pushing players on. One of the things that we do seem to be doing pretty well is breaking quickly on teams at the minute. Right. And we've got, some Corey Blackett-Taylor on the wing is lightning quick.
Yeah.
So if we can release him down the side, May is quick as well and scores goals, then we could end up with situations where we've got some balls across the box and sort of those flat crosses that are just tap-ins. But we are going to have to be on our game and mentally switched on for 90 minutes defensively. And 90 seconds sometimes is a bit of an arse. So 90 minutes could be a real challenge. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah.
Is that where you see Charlton's strengths lying then, in terms of, counter-attacking pretty fluidly? Perhaps winning the ball high up the pitch or deep in your own half and then driving it at Bolton. Do you think that's where you'll likely find your success on Saturday?
If we don't move the ball forward quickly, we end up in a real situation where we end up with a flat front 4 and at times even a flat front 6 this season, because the wingers push right up. Striker, May's playing in behind, he's right up as well. And you end up with your 2 centre-backs, your 2 holding midfield players, and then we're hitting long balls. So if we don't get the ball forward quickly, we tend to break down a little bit and struggle to get through the teams. But if we get the ball moving through the thirds at pace, then that whole pattern of pushing people up quick then really comes into its own strength. And that's where we're getting those spaces and those opportunities. And if you look through our game against Reading, where we won 4-0, there was... the referee actually blew when we were just about to be 5 because we had a 2-on-2 players breaking through, and it was just at the end, and there'd been 2 or 3 where we'd moved the ball pretty quickly forwards, use that space on the inside or the outside, or even just straight in behind the centre backs to go. And playing balls down the side of a back 3 is something that Appleton likes to do, and we started well doing that on Tuesday, and then fell asleep. But when that was working well, we were dangerous in those transitions. But as I say, we're just as dangerous coming the other way in transitions. So we're seeing a lot of goals, and I don't think that trend is going to change anytime soon. Yeah. So we'll certainly be up there for one of the more entertaining sides, I'd reckon, over the course of a season. And May is a sort of an embodiment of that. He's on course for about 35 goals at the minute if he carries this trend up. And so you've got players that are in form that are able to excite and get people off their seats even.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly going to be a tough challenge for the Wanderers, and I think transitional games really don't suit us very well at all. We prefer to take control of the game and hold on to the ball. And there's been instances where in transition we've been caught out really quite poorly. I think Carlisle at home was a really good example of that, where they picked up the ball and all it took was one good attempt at carrying the ball forward and they were through, and we all know what happened there. So in terms of individual players, perhaps, obviously Alfie May, currently top goal scorer on 9. Corey Blackett-Taylor with 9 goal contributions as well. Some fantastic players going forward. You've also got the young lad Tyrese Campbell, who seems to be making an impact. Is there anyone else there that we need to be watching out for and that Wanderers fans should keep a close eye on?
So we've got Miles Leeburn as well as a youngster who's I think 6'4" and I think he's either 19 or 20. There's a couple of Prem clubs monitoring him. I think he's got 22 goals in 50 appearances for us so far. which isn't bad going. That stat might be completely wrong, but he's certainly on form this season in terms of his goals per minute. He'd be right up there for towards the top of the league. So you've got him, who's a physical presence. You've got May, who's just an absolute nuisance.
Yeah.
Blackett Taylor with his pace. Tyrese Campbell's got a trick, but one of the players that I think is most exciting for us to watch at the minute is Louis Watson in central midfield on loan from Luton, because he doesn't mind mixing it up. But he carries the ball really, really well. It brings other people into play, and he will turn and run at you if he gets the opportunity. So he could be quite dynamic in the middle to watch from that side of things. But it all depends on who's on form on the day. Like Blackett Taylor is probably one of the best, if not the best winger in the league on his day, but he can also just not get anything out of him over the course of 90 minutes. And you sort of wondering, was he even there? One game, he had 6 touches all game in 60 minutes and just didn't get himself involved. So he can have those games and then he can have 3 assists in 90 minutes. So it all depends on that, really. I think the team will be interesting tomorrow because we made 4 changes and the mentality was criticised quite heavily by Appleton after the game. And a couple of those players are ones that I think are some of our mentally weaker in terms of being present for 90 minutes. So I'm hoping that we go back to where we were on Saturday with that lineup a little bit more, but maybe with Tyrese Campbell over Tedic, because I like wingers wide rather than strikers wide. I think they cause more problems. And with your 3, I don't think it's going to be a physical game that we're going to win. I think it's going to have to be pace and trickery down the outside of your centre backs. That's where we're going to get our joy. So it'd be interesting to see if we go that way or if we do man up physically. Which
side does Blackett Taylor play on, Joe?
Left. He's on the left hand side.
Okay.
So that's hopefully your right back is slow and your left back is quick. That'll be the right way around for us.
Our fullbacks normally aren't even there.
Okay.
Right. They're usually somewhere about 50 yards up the pitch.
Yeah. We won't be tracking them back, so they'll have lots of space. We won't be tracking them back too aggressively. So they'll be all right.
Colin, one of our hosts, has commented that we rested one of our new players this season, Randelle Williams. He was with us tail end of last season, but he's really just started to come into form since he signed from Hull. This season, he's really showed us what he's all about. However, he was rested on Tuesday night at Wycombe. And it would be him that Blackett Taylor will be coming up against. So Colin's made a really good point. Maybe that's the reason why Everett rested Randelle Williams in preparation, because he's played more minutes than he has done for a long time. He has some real injury issues at Hull. So he's been playing a lot of football, a lot more than he's been used to. So that kind of makes sense now. So maybe Blackett Taylor's reputation has preceded him there.
And his reputation will do. He'll be one that, again, I think him and Lee Byrne will be a real challenge to hold on to in January with the way that Blackett Taylor. I don't think Blackett Taylor transitions up actually to the Championship myself. I don't think his end product and his decision making will go to that level unless it's at a team who's struggling to stay up themselves. But certainly his pace. I mean, if he had decision making, he'd be playing for one of the top sides in the country probably, but unfortunately he doesn't. But his pace is that good. It is a real game changer in and of itself, and it enables him to make really bad decisions time and time again because he gets lots of opportunities to make them. But you don't get that luxury at the high level, do you? That's the challenge.
No, you don't.
No, absolutely. Gonna head over and touch on an injury update for both sides now, so stay tuned and we'll bring that to you very shortly. You'll also have to let us know what you think about the new graphics, obviously coming swiftly at you with Kermit the Frog. Just let us know what you think of the new ones. We'll
Ben previewed that with me just prior to Joe coming online. It's the first I'd seen of it, and it tickles me the fact that we've got.
I think it's fantastic personally. So, Joe, Over at Charlton Athletic, what's the injury situation looking like? Are there any key players out for you? Any, bodies that might just be about on the cusp of coming back? What's the latest?
Yeah, injuries are a touchy subject. We've just lost Chuck Sanike to another injury, and apparently it's a long-term one, a couple of months. I mean, he doesn't have short-term ones, I'll be honest, but he is going to be a massive miss, although it's a miss we're used to having. We've got Terry Taylor in midfield as a player we got for a development fee from Burton, but he hasn't really played too much, so he's not a big miss. And then we've got the likes of Fraser, who are coming back from injury, who are just sort of establishing themselves. Tyrese Campbell's just back from injury, getting himself into the side. So there's a few players about. Tayo Eden, I think it'll be too soon for him. Pan Kamara's just back from injury. You see a theme here. So we've got a few players that are just on their way back or out for a fairly long time still. But the most important thing is the core group outside of Annika that have been playing week in, week out are all pretty much still fit and ready to go. So we will have a fairly consistent squad. Maybe just one or two changes for more tactical rather than actual injury reasons. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Very much a touchy subject for Wanderers fans as well. I think we're just about coming over the hill on that front with Mendes Gomez due back, I believe, possibly for Saturday. I know he's been back out training with the lads. Obviously, Kyle Dempsey, probably one of the biggest misses at the minute with a fractured vertebrae. They've been playing through for quite a while. Obviously, we saw Magoma back for 65 minutes against Wickham, and Zach Ashworth. I think his injury status is still unknown. I'm not quite sure where he's up to. We've not heard much.
Yeah, I've not seen anything on that. If anybody in the chat can elaborate on that, it's not been mentioned in any of the press conferences leading up to the game as to his status. So if anybody's got any updates on that, feel free to share.
Absolutely, but obviously Santos back in the fold now, well and truly, and Body's slowly but surely coming back, which is really good to see. Who, from a Wanderers perspective, Joe, are you not looking forward to facing?
Santos, the massive chap that plays in the centre of the defence, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He angered me.
Sometimes he really is.
He angered me so much last season. I was just fed up of watching him swat things away like they didn't exist. I played rugby once with Britain's strongest man at the time at inside centre, and I was at outside centre, and it reminded me of that, of just men against boys. It was really just like, I just do what I want. But I mean, I suppose for me, if you've got anyone that's got half a lick of pace up front, I'm worried about them being against Michael Hector and just we switch off for runs drifting in behind. So that'd be a massive problem. But I think more than the individual players, I'm worried about the system that you guys actually employ and the way in which you build from back to the front and the way that you move us around. I genuinely think you could make some changes and still cause quite a lot of problems in terms of that movement. And it's something we haven't come up against yet in Mickey Apple's tenure. So seeing how we do sort of turn off and have those lapses, I think it could be a real day of being put to the sword, and it could be a bit of a cricket score if we don't get that right. And those patterns of play, like I remember them last season. I was amazed you boys didn't go up. And I was on the Sheffield Wednesday pod, and they asked me for a reaction afterwards after they'd luck to win against us. Obviously they were giving it the big one that they're one of the best sides ever to exist. And my feedback to them was, we're near a Bolton. That's how I felt after watching you guys at the Valley last season, and then watching them. So it'll be that side of it, I think, that scares me more than the individuals. When you're playing some of the lesser teams in this league, they normally have like one or two that sort of do something, but it's not consistent in terms of the movement and the strain that you put a defense under. I think it was 1-2 games I saw last season, but they both stood out as being chalk and cheese in terms of the level that we would need to get to be competing with you guys. So
interesting.
Very, very strong words, and hopefully Wanderers can live up to that. I am sure it's going to make for an interesting game.
Yeah.
And I mean, I for one am looking forward to it. Chris, how are you feeling?
Well, for those who know me know that I go into no game with any level of optimism. Tuesday night being the last example, that win at Wycombe was a pleasant surprise, shall we say? But I think I'm pretty much consistent with everybody else. I think there's a lot of predictions going around for high-scoring draws, 2-2s, 3-3s, all sorts of permutations coming up. I'm thinking a 2-2 draw, and as a result, as you know, a game as part of quite a difficult run, I'd be delighted with a draw, without being too pessimistic.
Joe, can we get a score prediction from you?
Well, you boys haven't drawn in 5, so that sort of makes me think that a draw could be on the cards. I'm going to go with 3-2 Bolton, because I think that we'll probably concede the lead. We'll probably draw it back, and then we'll probably just then throw it away right at the end with a moment of madness. And we don't have Chucks. If we had Chucks, I'd be saying the other way around, because him coming on for the last 30 minutes, even against Santos, I'd actually be interested to see Chucks against Santos. I think Chucks would do him for strength. Yeah. So if it was that way around, I'd be a bit more confident, but I'm not overly confident going into tomorrow. And it'll be one of those, I think, in the bar beforehand, we'll be talking about, it's going to be a tough day at the office, and we got away with it probably if we get the win. So I think that'll be the vibe down at the River. So we'll see what happens. But
is that you leading into a really, really classy plug there, Joe, by any chance?
Hey, always a plug. If Bolton fans want a decent pint of Cask Ale or Pale Ale, then the River Ale House is away fans are allowed. It's my pub, so definitely come down and have a chat before or after. It's a nightmare getting on a train. So it's walkable and there's buses, so it's well easy to get to the ground as well. So
just remind the viewers what's the boozer called again?
The River Ale House.
There you go, ladies and gents, for a pre-match tipple of quality. So welcoming away fans, the River Ale House. And you say it's how far away from the ground, Joe?
It's a 20-minute walk, or there's a bus that literally goes from us to the stadium, outside, door to door. So I think there's 2 buses actually, but I'm always walking, so I don't actually know the bus routes. I should probably learn them.
Well, there you have it. Get yourself over there, Wanderers fans, and thank you all for joining us this evening, and safe travels to any of you going down there tomorrow. Joe, thank you very, very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Always a
pleasure,
mate.
Lads. Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, boys.
Well, thanks everyone for watching, and for now, we'll catch you until the next one. Take care.